Then we have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. I pledge allegiance. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's good.
You can say it, Tim.
Okay, great. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, do you mind if I mention a couple of milestone people that have passed away at the start of the meeting?
Yes, definitely you can.
Okay, great. So as the director of the library, I want to remember these two people publicly. Former trustee Brian Hartson, who passed away on December 17th and served 13 years as a volunteer on the library board, which of course you all know how much dedication and work that takes. He served from 2002 to 2015. And one of our very, very favorite patrons. Of course, we treat everyone equally, but we all loved Sylvia Alpert, one of our patrons who passed away in December at age 105. And we put a little tribute to her on Facebook, and it was one of our most popular posts of the month, certainly, and really of the year, probably. So just want to remember and thank those people for giving so much of themselves to the library.
Very good. Wow, 105, that's impressive. All right, well, the next order of business is the appointment of Jenna to part-time board clerk. And I believe in everyone's packet, we have the resolution language. Excuse me?
Someone who's not speaking should mute if you're not speaking. Yeah, probably. And if you're on the phone, the muting on the phone is *6.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Sorry.
We can hear you, but we also think you might be the cause of the feedback. So if you could just...
I'm just gonna leave this meeting. Sorry, I'm gonna leave the meeting video.
Okay.
Oh, God.
So I think the problem is when there are two different connections that both have the microphone open, such as the phone.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry about it. Okay, I'm just gonna do it by phone. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
The first order of business, as I mentioned, is the resolution to appoint Jenna to the position of part-time board clerk. And I'll just read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby creates the title of board clerk effective January 1, 2022 as a part-time stipended position. Appoints Jennifer Szymanski to serve as a part-time board clerk and approve the agreement by and between the Guilderland Public Library and Ms. Szymanski, dated, I guess that would be today. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
My motion, please. It's Norina.
Norina?
Yes.
Okay. And second, I thought I saw Phil. Okay.
Kathy, can I make a brief comment before the vote?
Sure, certainly.
So I just wanted to let everyone know that Jenna and I have studied the role of the board clerk in detail in preparation for this. And I want to be clear before the vote that this creates 3 duties for Jenna in this role. And that is officially taking the minutes for all of the meetings, running or coordinating the annual meeting, which takes place in July. And Jenna's role would be brief because the first thing on the agenda is to swear in the new president. So it's a short duty there. and coordinating the library's role in the annual budget vote. And the reason I mentioned those three duties is to try to prudently point out it doesn't create an unlimited set of duties to serve the board. There are many things the board should try to be doing on their own. And so you're voting on Jenna to do these three things. So I just wanted to be clear about that. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Are there any questions? Okay, I'll take the roll call. Let's see. Tony,
Yes.
Vanessa,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Norina,
Yes.
and Marcia,
Yes,
Barbara,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and I am in favor. So the motion passes unanimously to appoint Jenna to the position of ward clerk. And now the next order of business is to administer the oath to Jenna for the position of board clerk. I'm just trying to find the oath in my email here.
I have it, Kathy, if you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I
If
can
you
go
would
ahead.
like to administer the oath, it would save time.
Super. So Jenna, just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly affirm that I will, I'm not sure I'm hearing you.
Sorry, I forgot to put it on mute.
Okay.
I do solemnly affirm
That I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New York,
of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of board clerk
of board clerk
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Jenna.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks for the vote, everybody. It's a good step for us.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, that will lighten the load for the board secretary considerably, as it was originally construed. Although when I was secretary, Jenna always helped me out. So the next order of business is the approval of minutes from December 16th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Oh, Barbara, okay. Barbara, and any second? Bill? All right, and I believe there was only one abstention from these minutes. I'll just take it by a vote. Everyone in favor of approving these minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I abstain. I did not attend the meeting.
Right,
Marcia.
right. Marcia abstention and also unanimously approved. Okay. Anything for public input session number 1?
Hi, everybody. No, I don't have any public input to report at this time.
Okay. The next order of business is personnel actions. Maybe Tim can speak to that.
Sure. The proposed motion is to finalize something you approved last month, but we want to start the person on a different date. So last month we moved to appoint Carly Drislane to a new position effective January 1st. And it turns out we got it done on January 12th. So the motion is as follows. Appoint Carly Drislane to a full-time senior library clerk in Access Services Department effective January 12th, 2022, with a pay rate of $17.69, sorry about that, $17.69 per hour for 37.5 hours per week. This appointment is provisional pending the employee being reachable on a civil service list for this title.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the appointment of Carly Drislane to this position? Phil, second? Was there a
I
second?
second.
Was that Norina?
Noreen.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So I think we can take just a voice vote. All in favor of the motion to appoint Carly Drislane, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes unanimously at 6:12 p.m. All right. So the next order of business is the treasurer's report for November 6th and November and December 2021.
Hi, everybody. So last meeting, I expressed that I wasn't able to finish my review of the November statements because they came too close to the meeting. So thanks for your patience with that. The concern that I had there was that I couldn't reconcile the expenses and then how they flowed to the balance sheet. Just to kind of recap, expenses came in November of $557,000. The prior month it was $352,000. So I wanted to look into that a little further. Tim provided the background. It was a payroll adjustment. And I went back and looked at it again, comparing it to November of 2020, and the same thing happened in that month. So just for your knowledge, November 2020, the expenses were $505,000. November 2021, $557,000. So there was a sizable increase during the month of November, but it looks like that adjustment happens every November, so it was nothing out of the ordinary. The net income does flow to the balance sheet. That number, the higher number did flow, which was correct. So my concerns about the balance sheet were abated by Tim's explanation. So that was for November. Looking at December, a few comments, and I'll start with the income statement. So the income statement showed revenues of $5,400. I compared that to December of 2020, and it was $9,300. The driver of the difference were the size of the grants that the library received. The grant for December was $4,000, and that was from the Upper Hudson Library System for the enhancement to the hearing aid system. I guess it was kind of a general credit that was used by the library for audio enhancements. Moving then to the expenses, not a huge difference from 2020 to 2021 for the expenses. Overall, it was a net loss of $241,000. And just to kind of give you a comparison, December of 2020, it was $253,000 of expenses. 2021, it was $246,000, so they were pretty close. There's one item on the income statement that you'll see is over budget, and that is commercial insurance. It's on the first page, third from the bottom. The budget is exceeded by $6,000, so it's fairly sizable for insurance. Checked with Carol, and the reason for the larger amount is that the library is now insuring the building instead of the Guilderland school system, so our rates would go up commensurate with that, so that makes sense. Balance sheet for December, had a couple comments on that. In terms of the assets, construction costs continue to flow to the right spot, which is construction in process, so no problem there. Current assets, there was a decrease in the cash of the operating accounts, more or less equivalent to the loss in the library, so that matched up. One item that I checked with Carol on was that the accounts payable went up quite a bit. It's $278,000 for for December 2021. That's an increase of about 80,000. So fairly sizable. What she explained was that some of the expenses for the renewal project were put on a debt. They needed to be paid back to the construction vendors. She stated that those are probably going to start paying off later this month or early next month. Then going to check register, there's one item that stood out as being an amount from a vendor that I hadn't seen before, and that was Anjo Tree Service. And thinking back to our last meeting, there was a tree or series of trees that had to be removed due to the potential for damage to the building. Checked with Carol, she confirmed that Anjo Tree Service was the vendor who the library chose to remove those trees, so that matched up and explained the difference. All the other expenses were by vendors that were, commonly seen on every month's reports. So nothing else out of the ordinary. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yeah. Hi, it's Marina.
Hi.
So can you just explain what the payroll adjustment was that happens every November? Do you know what that is?
I didn't ask.
It matches.
Yeah, I didn't get into that level of detail with Carol. I just wanted an explanation as to what the difference was, what the driver of the difference was. She did confirm that it's an annual thing, and she's not on the phone, I don't think. I could check with her for more detail as to what drives it, but the actual mechanics of it, I don't know. But I can look that up and get back to you.
Okay, and then the other question I had, what was the payout for the 80,000 increase to other vendors? I'm sorry, I don't think I caught everything that you said about that.
Sure, yeah. It seemed odd to me that the accounts payable would have gone up so much. And the reason why it caught my eye was because the operating account, cash account, went down by an amount that was pretty close to the net loss for the month. So my question was, why are they charging things? What's the driver of the liability? And it was payments to construction vendors that were charged in December, but will be paid in January. And she gave me a breakdown of some of the names. And let me just find what she said. 1 second. EOS Technologies, Plumbing and Heating, Campito, Davis Ulmer Sprinkler, Flex Electric LLC. So basically what happens is they did their work. They charged us, we paid on credit card or some sort of debt, and then we're going to pay that off. We, being the library, will pay that off in January. So they're just marked as a liability.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's reports for November and December 2021 and the check register for January 2022?
I'll move, Barbara.
I'll move. I'll second. Or
Barbara and Marcia? Okay.
Yep.
All right, everyone who approves of this motion, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, it passes unanimously at 6:19 p.m. All right, so directors and department heads reports for December 2021.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with a very quick update on the searches for assistant director and fiscal officer. Both are going quite well and almost ready to wrap up. We have 2 more interviews for the assistant director position on the 27th and 28th, and 1 more interview for a fiscal officer candidate, which is yet to be scheduled, but we're trying to get it in the first half of next week. So I anticipate that there are a lot of strong candidates for the assistant director, and there are a smaller number, but still strong candidates for the fiscal officer. I'm just crossing my fingers that we don't have the same thing happen with the second round of fiscal officer searches that happened the first time, which is that once the interviews were completed, some people pulled out. But hopefully by the next meeting, we'll be able to announce the names of both positions. I would expect Assistant Director to come first, followed by Fiscal Officer. So that's an update on searches. Perhaps the major event of the month of December, other than that, was that we hosted a very high-powered New York State Legislature event on December 15th with Senator Sean Ryan, who's the chair of the Libraries section of the State Senate, and our local state senator, Michelle Hinchy, and Assembly Member Kimberly Jean-Pierre, who's the Assembly chair of the Assembly Committee on Libraries. And they were traveling from Buffalo to Long Island, visiting libraries. And Tim Burke at Upper Hudson suggested that they come here because of the recently mostly completed renovation project. So it was a great hour-long meeting, and they asked us a lot of questions, and we gave a lot of feedback about how grants and construction and things like that work. From our departmental reports, I want to congratulate Luann, who's always had a very good open rate for her emails, but it's sky high this month at 49%. 33 is generally thought to be excellent. The Youth Services Department in December put out 5 pickup kits and 1 pickup bag, and those were enthusiastically supported by the community. We do have 3 book clubs operating right now in the library, of course, all virtually. The Green Reads Book Club, the Memoirs in the Morning Book Club, and the Night Owls Book Discussion. I did attend one of the Night Owls in December, and it was excellent, run by Maura Powers Smith. I would also ask people listening, whether they're board members or employees or members of the community, to consider logging books for our winter reading challenge. It just, you go online and log what you're reading or how many minutes you're reading, and it helps us to try to earn some prizes and so forth. But its key function is that it motivates people to read. I can tell you that it works. Also in the programming department, this is a good example of how libraries have pivoted and changed a little bit due to the pandemic. We had 75 people participating in a kettlebells program from their home, an exercise program. So we've done occasional exercise programs in the past, but if you'd asked me 3 years ago whether we could get 75 people to work out at home together as part of a library program, I would have said probably not. So that was good. As far as sort of physical things around the library, the fireplace now works, so that's fantastic. The Crounce House door has been picked up by Trevette Millworks and taken to their shop in Greenwich, and they're working on, mitigating any lead or asbestos and coming up with a design to install it in the library. Our new shed has been placed out back, and I'm proud to let the community know that our old shed was moved over to Farnsworth Middle School so that the taxpayers could use that as well. Having bought it once, they didn't need to buy it twice. And as Tony Ripicki mentioned, we had the 4 large dangerous trees removed. They were wonderful trees before the construction project, but the extremely wet summer combined with all the heavy equipment created a domino effect that threatened to land on top of our new building. So we're glad to have that taken care of. And that is the library report.
Tim, can I ask a question?
Of course.
What's the status of the automated material sorting system?
Sure, and I believe you asked that last month too, and it's essentially the same. There's a lot of kind of fairly complicated software that we're trying to install and get trained on. But so I don't actually have a date, but I do feel that progress has been made. I can, assuming that Phil Berardi is here tomorrow, I can find out and email the board if you'd like where we stand right now.
That'd be fine, but I'm sure it's coming along in its in its own time. One other question, just out of curiosity, the tree service that took those trees down at the library, was that the same tree service that we had previously gotten an estimate from?
It was the second of 2 estimates.
Okay.
we had used a different tree service, which can't quite remember the name of, for some trees along Mercy Care Lane. And when they came to see, we called them back because they'd done a good job and affordably, but they came to see this situation, and it was so tall and has to do with that raised parking lot and then extending a crane over into that wooded area. And they didn't have the equipment for it, so we had to find a second tree company.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the directors and department heads reports for December 2011?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, Mike, seconded by Norina. And
I think
all,
that was actually Peter.
Yeah, that was
made the
Peter.
motion.
oh, I'm sorry. Peter, seconded by Norina. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying or aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes unanimously at 6:27 p.m. All right, so committee reports. First on the list, audit. Mike?
All right. So the audit committee met on January 5th, and we had a presentation from Tom Hosey, who is the outside auditor. The audit report is included in the board packet. Hopefully everyone got a chance to look at that. It was basically described to us as a clean audit. The auditor's opinion, which can be found on page 2 of the report, just briefly, it says, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Guilderland Public Library and the changes in its financial position and its cash flows in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So it's what they described as a clean audit. And also they audited, at the end of that report, you'll see there's an audit of the library's internal controls. And in that, they found there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that needed to be reported. And so the audit committee recommends that the board accept the auditor's report.
So we need a motion to accept the auditor's report. Phil,
Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Barbara.
I'm sorry, was that
Barbara.
Barbara? Okay. All right. And if you're in favor of this motion, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
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 Is anyone is anyone opposed? All right, so unanimously accepted at 6:29 p.m. All right, Mike, you're on again for the finance committee report.
The finance committee met on January 12th, and our first order of business was to follow up on the issue that came up at last month's board meeting about the investment of the library's revenues. And we had a presentation from Jim Ferranda of Capcom, and basically he gave us basically a summary of the options that were available to us, and basically the guidelines, the restrictions on how we invest the funds, as he explained it, was that we are limited to investment options that are either FDIC insured or federally backed. So basically we have a choice between CDs or treasury bills. In the past, the library has generally invested in CDs, and the way they do it is the library needs a minimum of $200,000 maturing each month to cover the library's payroll and other expenses. So they do laddered CDs so that they have money coming up on a monthly basis to be used to cover those expenses. In the past, they had generally used CDs because they had typically a higher yield. Last year, the strategy changed in part because of the construction funds, and FDIC insurance is limited to $250,000 per bank that the money is invested in. So it necessitates spreading these CDs around to different financial institutions in order to make, ensure that all of the money is insured. But with the amount of the construction funds, it became impractical to be able to spread the money around to that many different institutions. And so they ended up investing in treasuries instead last year. This year, he recommends basically investing in some mix of treasuries and CDs, just depending on whatever will give us, whatever we can find that will give a better yield. Right now, it looks like treasury bills are currently have a better return. He quoted us at the time of the meeting, CDs, depending on the length of time the CDs were for, how many months the CD was for, were ranging from I think 10 to 50 basis points. And treasury bills, he said he was anticipating that we'd have a blended rate of between 65 and 75 basis points. So his recommendation was that we approve a investment in some mix of CDs and treasury bills, just depending on whatever will get us the better yield that he can find. And also, just as a bit of background, he explained that Capcom has been investing in the library's funds for several years, and that this is part of Capcom's pro bono services that they provide, and they're not charging us a commission on this because it's part of their pro bono service to the library as a public entity. After hearing this presentation, the Finance Committee unanimously recommends that we continue to invest the funds with Capcom, and as recommended by Jim Ferranda, in treasury bills or CDs or some mix of the two. Does anyone else from the committee have anything to add to that summary?
I just noted in last month's minutes, there was a resolution that was tabled and sent to the Finance Committee, and the resolution was to invest $2.4 million in U.S. Treasury notes and $600,000 in a money market account with Capcom. Is that would that still be the preference for investing, or would that motion or resolution change based upon what I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I think we might want to change it in two ways. So first, he was recommending, although it looks like treasury notes are the better investment right now, he recommended that it just be some mix of treasury notes and CDs, just depending on when he's investing it, what he can get that's a better yield. So that would give a little more flexibility. But the other is, I'm not sure about the amount, because as I understand it, every month $200,000 is coming up. So this has been delayed another month. I don't know. I don't think the full 2.4 million still exists. I think some of that money's already been spent. So, Tim, can you speak to that?
I think you're entirely right on that point, but I don't have an updated figure. So I have a rhetorical suggestion that if you change the motion to say up to 2.4 million, it would allow you to invest 2 or 2.2, whatever happens to be left at this point in time.
Okay, I think it said 2.4 million to U.S. Treasury notes and 600,000 in money market. So was it 2.4 million, or was it 3 million? I'm not.
Total of 3 million.
Okay, so we don't necessarily want to say a specific amount in the wait, we would say up to 2.4 million or up to 3 million, or I'm just trying to figure out how to word the motion.
Based on my rudimentary knowledge, and I did attend the meeting, I think you're wanting to invest as much of that 3 million as you've still got available to you. So to me, it would be up to 3 million. But Mike, I wonder if you agree.
we didn't really, at least as far as I remember, we didn't discuss the $600,000 in the money market. I don't know if that came up in the presentation at the meeting. I'm assuming that's just, funds that we want to have ready on hand in case of emergency or things like that. We don't want everything tied up in the CDs or treasury bills. So I would, assuming that's correct, I would think that we'd say we just change this to invest up to 2.4 million in treasury notes or CDs and up to 600,000 in a money market account. And that would cover whatever's remaining of those funds that we still have on hand that hasn't already been spent.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, so the motion would read, the proposed resolution states to invest up to $2.4 million in U.S. Treasury notes and up to $600,000 in a money market account. Is that correct?
I thought you said 2.4 in T-bills and or CDs.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, and or CDs? Okay, all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
okay,
and 600,000 in a money market account. Okay, I have a question, if I might.
sure.
And it looks like Vanessa's had her hand up too, so I think she had a question as
Oh, I'm
well.
sorry. Go ahead. Sorry,
Sure, I can wait. Finish up.
I can't see Vanessa, so I apologize. I mean, I can see, but I can't see you. You said this. In the past, we had our CDs laddered so that we can meet $200,000 to meet expenses. So I'm assuming that the CDs would similarly be laddered. Correct, Mike?
Yes, they would do the same way. So whether it's a CD, the CDs would be laddered so that they mature on on a certain amount is maturing every month. Or if it's treasury bills, they get treasury bills where the maturity date on the bill is those months, and they buy them buy them at a discount so that you make the money when they mature at the end of the term. So they have the terms of those bills ending at different months.
Okay, so my next question is, do we need to keep $600,000 in a money market account, which garners no interest at all, really? Just a question. If we have a laddered CD scheme that allows us to meet our expenses, why do we need to have $600,000 in a money market account? And my last question is, and then I'll stop speaking. They're doing this on a pro bono basis, so there's no commission. Are there any other fees, or is it entirely pro bono?
As I don't know, Tim, can you speak to that at all? As I understand, they're not taking any fees from us on it. I don't know. Yeah.
There are no payments at all from us to Capco or to anyone else, related to Capco. It's an entirely free community service. As they explain it, if they go out into the community and do this kind of community service for nonprofit organizations, and it happens to generate other business for them from people who are, aware of what they do, then that's why they do it, in addition to give back to the community. In terms of the 600,000, when we were with NBT Bank, that amount was required to have in a separate account, which was actually just a non-interest bearing checking account years ago.
Right.
And that was in order that NBT would waive their monthly banking fees. And we figured out, I think it's accurate to say we figured out that that wasn't real beneficial to us, but that the $600,000 amount, I think, is preserved in money market in order to be more liquid than the investments that Jim buys on our behalf.
Even with the CDs, even with the laddered CDs.
Right. And as I heard the meeting, it's mostly going to be T-bills and notes because CDs are so low return rate right now.
Okay, thank you.
Vanessa, did you have a question?
Yes, I was just wondering about the yield rates. Are those are the same rates available to all investors? Because I think last time we were talking about, you know, getting an opinion from someone who wasn't selling us a product. Granted, in this case, they're not making a profit. So we could debate if they're selling us anything. But more broadly, I guess I'm interested in sort of the process or the cycle by which the library evaluates who we have doing the investing for us. And I mean, yes, we've used Capcom for a period of time, and this isn't me making an argument to necessarily switch, but doing due diligence to understand if there are other options that would yield a better or different result for us.
Looks like Barbara would like to weigh in on that, perhaps.
Barbara?
Yeah, because we are so limited, if you've done any banking recently, probably in the last 6 months to a year, yields are abysmal. And
Yeah.
there are no other places that you can go to get better rates because they're set by the federal government in a sense. The banks have some leeway, but if you shop around, you'll see that, you know, they're within a 0.01 of each other. The advantage of us handing over, in a sense, our monies to Jim Ferranda is that prior to this, Carol or her predecessors basically had to go around to 5 or 6 banks to put in a maximum of 250,000, or go to a bank and then they would have to somehow or other put up collateral that would cover greater than 250,000. And Tim may be able to speak to that a little bit better. But this is really a terrific service to the library. And as I said, there is no charge. If you had somebody else doing it, you know, maybe somebody else would not charge it at all. But I think, you know, he's really done well by the library. And as Mike pointed out, it's pro bono. And it's been a real service. It's really taken a lot of time and effort off of our financial person that had to go and do this shopping. And so I'm very happy to leave it as it is. I did have a question though on the resolution. By stating a definite number of 600,000, I don't know what we have in the bank right now. And as Mike pointed out, we need basically about 200,000 a month. So maybe we don't need to have 600,000, you know, in a money market, which is paying probably 0.01 or less at this point.
Yeah.
So just, you know,
That was my comment. Yeah.
thoughts on that.
Barbara, yeah.
So one answer to that, if I could, is that the way it's written now, it does say that you would invest up to 2.4 million in one vehicle and up to 600,000 in the other, but it doesn't say you have to. So if the money market is not necessary, we can figure that out and not do it. Back to Vanessa's question, the process that Jim uses, as it was explained to us, is that once a week, and I believe it's on Tuesdays, new investment vehicles are released, and it's like a feeding frenzy, basically. Like you have to grab the ones with the highest yield quickly because they will sell out. So I don't know if it's once a week or once a month, given that we draw down once a month, but he's constantly reevaluating what's available. And of course, Barbara's right as well that there's really nothing available. You know, the numbers at the finance committee meeting were abysmal is a very good word. I mean, she was saying with her, or he was saying with his overall plan that I think last year he produced 0.8 of 1%, and the market in general produced 0.5 of 1%, something quite very similar to that. I don't know. I don't have my notes right in front of me, but he's good at what he does. And you know, there's nobody in the position, even though Carol's helping us out, there's nobody who could go and do that shopping around for investments right now.
Sure, absolutely. And that's exactly what I was asking. So I appreciate that, Tim. Just having sort of that comparison, I think, is important. Otherwise, I don't know how to make a decision.
Treasuries to 2,400,000. Can we not word it more openly than that so that our total investment may be saying, allowing for the needs, the monthly needs of, our organization versus capping the CD Treasury investment at 2.4 million? You get my point?
I think I do, and I think as a practical matter this year, since we're already another month down, away, probably the money we have available to invest of the 2.4 million that was going to be invested, we're at least 1 month past that, so it's going to be only 2.2 or whatever, and that will give us a little flexibility if we wanted to take some out of the money market account and put it toward, into the treasury notes or CDs, just as a practical matter for this year. But it may be something that we want to revisit in the future. How much do we really need in the more liquid investment?
Okay.
Okay, so I have that resolution on the table. And so I'll just take a roll call, whether yay or nay on the motion. Let's see. Vanessa,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Norina,
Yes.
and Peter.
Yes.
All right, it passes unanimously at 6:50 p.m. All right. So continuing with the committee reports, we have the nominating committee chaired by Marcia.
Hi, the nominating committee met on November 13th at noon. The committee is made up of myself, Marina Melita, and Bill Metzger, and Barbara Federico sat in during our meeting. The purpose of the meeting was a discussion to make recommendations to the board with respect to the 2 open trustee positions. We have 2 proposed trustee candidates to fill the 2 slots that are currently open with respect to trustees, and we make them for board approval as required by the bylaws. We received a lot of resumes and letters of interest, and all of them were really, really wonderful, at least on paper, because we didn't have an opportunity to meet folks in person. But on paper, they were all wonderful resumes, and they were all could have been really wonderful candidates for the board. And so we had a lot of discussion around what it is we were looking for as a fellow board person, and the qualities that would be necessary, we thought, to look at so that we could make a choice and make a recommendation to the board with the 2 people we felt would fulfill the certain qualities that were necessary, or we felt necessary, to round out the board and have a collegial and collaborative board. I just want to make a comment that any one of the people who sent resumes and letters of intent, including the 2 people we chose, the board felt would make a wonderful candidate, and they are encouraged to run for the board for possible election at the annual meeting. That said, we chose Andy Genovese and Alicia Nikiades, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her last name properly, but those are the 2 people that we chose. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Andy and a little bit about Elise, and then we offer these 2 folks up respectfully for the board's approval. Andy Genovese, as I understand it, is known pretty well to the board because he's done some workshops and on staff development days. He's done workshops for the board. He's run a number of programs and is extremely interested in working with the board and has done these programs free of cost, as I understand it. He also volunteers for community caregivers and the Alzheimer's Association. His experience is pretty vast. He spent most of his professional life working for the Department of Labor in a variety of positions. He has a background in training and staff development, budget management, administrative analysis, and also grants management. And looking over his qualifications, he's moved up in the Labor Department over a period of years, and he just seemed like a natural for participation in the board because of his skills, because of his ability, it appeared from paper, to work collaboratively with folks at the Department of Labor and also in his responsibilities in his variety of positions as he moved up the Department of Labor. So he was one of our choices. The other choice was Elise Melchiades, and she seems to bring to the board the ability to meet organizational needs. From her paper, she seems to have connected with people. She's a professional in human resources. And we just had a sense that she had a good feel for people. She also seemed to have a great deal of technical know-how. And she also provided experience in diversity and equity and inclusion. She worked with Bethlehem Children's Schools. And it appeared from the paper that she would be able to create and maintain a positive and protective relationship with all members of the board. What we looked at and what we considered when we made these recommendations were the following skills or points that we were looking for when we considered the resumes we received. The first was whether or not such a person would be collaborative, because I think that what we were all looking for was a person who would work collaboratively with the board. That doesn't mean that we will agree about everything we talk about, but there was a spirit of collaboration with the folks that these two people would be working with, namely us, and the HR experience, the organizational management experience, and working with staff and employees and employers of these two people seemed to say to us, didn't seem to, but said to us that their background and their professional experience would indicate that they could work collaboratively with a group of people. We looked at the skills and experience that a person had, again, staff training and HR experience, budget management, organizational skills, and the fact that I know Barbara and Tim both know Andy Genovese and know of his help with the library in the past and his genuine interest in the community and also in working with the library, both with the staff and the board from time to time. Commitment to the library was also important to us. And looking at Elisa's Melchiades' background and resume, she has a background in diversity, and we thought it was important for our community, which is diverse. The demographics have certainly changed in Guilderland, and on a going forward basis, we thought it would be a wonderful addition to the board to have somebody who was adept and had worked with respect to diversity with all people because of the demographic changes in Guilderland and the necessary changes that the library would or should or could make to meet the needs. That was another point with respect to Elise that we thought would be helpful with the library. And I'm going to, before I I will formally put these two people into nomination for the board's approval, but I do want to give the opportunity for Marina and Phil and Barbara, who attended the meeting, although not a voting member of the board of the nominating committee, to speak to what we discussed at the meeting and add anything that they might for the board's information. Phil,
Hi, it's
Marina.
Norina. Yeah, it's Norina. I just wanted to say you summarized that very well, and that's exactly what, the kind of qualifications we looked at. That all the 6 candidates that applied were very, very qualified, and it was difficult. But I feel like our conversation, our debates, and ultimately our vote was well-rounded and very respectful, and we're all in agreement that these 2 people would make great candidates. And we do encourage everybody else that applied to run for the election in May, because again, we could only pick 2. So we thank you.
Phil, Barbara.
They summarized everything. I'm just very happy that there's so many qualified people interested in serving on the board.
You're here. Bob, anything? Barbara?
No, as I said, they were all highly qualified, and it was really hard, for you guys to make your decision, but I think you chose well. Thank you.
Thank you. So I formally put into nomination for the board's approval, Andy Genovese and let me see. I hope I'm not mangling her name really, but
Maybe you
Elise
can spell
Machado.
it, because I didn't, I wrote down a bunch of different
It's
first
in the
names.
chat.
can.
Chat.
I put it in the chat. 4 comments up or 3 comments up.
Oh, okay.
You want me to do that, Kathy? I can do that easily.
Is she Alicia? What was
It's
her?
Elish, Elish.
Oh, okay.
First name.
Okay.
Last name is Melchide. And I'm
Okay.
pronouncing that Melchiades, but I'm not sure that that's the correct pronunciation.
Okay, so the motion is to nominate Andy Genovese and Elish Melchiada to fill the vacant board seats. You're making that motion, Marcia. Is there a second? Phil? All right, Marcia and Phil. I'll just take a roll call on the motion.
Do we
Oh,
get any discussion?
what's that?
Do we have opportunity for discussion?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay. So I have a comment. This is a little bit of what I was trying to voice concern about last meeting, about clarity around this process. This is not the process that I expected, and I'd like to voice my disappointment in not having of a role as a board member and selecting the individuals to fill the vacancies. So essentially what we have created here is a nominating committee who made that selection for us. And so we're just going to vote it up or down. I also have some concerns about the process, not including speaking to the actual potential board members. So although I appreciate and agree with the criteria outlined and discussed here, it leaves me wondering if we could completely evaluate that based off of resume review.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit curious as to whether you considered interviewing people like over Zoom or something, or is that something that the nominating committee doesn't usually do? I was just wondering that. Just
I have no idea what the nominating committee usually does, Barb, since I'm new on the nominating committee and I haven't been around
No, at the
that
meeting,
long, but
at the meeting,
I can speak to that a little bit. We did voice that concern that it would have been ideal to interview people, even if it was for 10 minutes each, like one day. And so we had kind of discussed a plan, but we voted on it, and it was considered exigent circumstances. We are still probably 3 months out from May after this meeting. So if we pushed it out any longer, we wouldn't be able to fill these positions. So we did discuss, ideally, we would have wanted to interview these people, because I completely agree that someone on paper, is great, but we don't know exactly what someone brings within their personality without having discussed things face to face, even if it is via Zoom or telephone. But we considered that, given the exigency of the circumstances and the need for someone right away, that we were okay with these individuals and that they would be able to run again in May. Everybody would be that is interested. And to speak to whether or not everybody else had input into the selection, I think that we voted at the last meeting that this would be up to the nominating committee. So that's why the nominating committee met and presented that to the board. So I think that's how we voted to do this process.
Sorry, Norita. We also have Vanessa, there's a bylaw which talks about
But that was my
how
exact point last time, was discussion of how the bylaws were written. And I was given verbal assurance that the process has always been very collaborative with this board. This doesn't feel collaborative.
Well, it's collaborative in that you can vote up or you can vote down, but the bylaws say if there's an incomplete term, the candidate who receives the highest number of votes at the last election of trustees but was not elected shall be offered the vacant trustee position. If accepted, shall serve until the next library board election. And we did that with Phil. We didn't have that option after Phil.
I understand that, Marsha, but with
phase.
all due respect, you weren't at the meeting during the discussion. And I tried to strongly word and present my lack of clarity and concern for how the bylaws were written. We did not make any if I can remember, did we take bylaw votes? Make any changes to the bylaws last time?
I thought we did approve
can't-
the bylaws specific to this.
Right, but the discussion was.
You can't just change the bylaws. You have to wait, I think, 30 days. But if Vanessa, with all due respect, if I can just finish reading the piece in the bylaws, and no disrespect to you, but I wanted to just finish reading the bylaws.
Sure.
It says if this candidate cannot serve, the nominating committee shall solicit interest from eligible persons and select a candidate who shall be presented for approval by the board. I'm not, I'm in no way arguing that that's the right way to do it, but that's what the bylaws say, and that's what we did.
Right. And so I appreciate that. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize for that. I guess the exception I was taking was the discussion around that wording. And I specifically raised concern about the nominating committee going off and returning only one candidate for one open position, in this case, two for two open positions. And the response from existing board members was, well, we've always done it, this way, and it's collaborative, and we'll bring people and there'll be discussion, et cetera. And so I was kind of forced to leave it alone and I even said, I voiced concern about us having a practice that is not exactly written here. And so now it is essentially being said, oh, well, no, we did the practice that was written. And so, I just want to say, obviously I will go ahead and vote if that's what we're considering the collaborative involvement for this process. But I think it's really unfortunate and I'm very disappointed.
Can I just add that we did make the meeting, we publicized it to the board members. So anybody that wanted to attend the meeting and voice their input on any candidate was welcome to join the committee. And actually, Barb did join the committee and had some really good insight into actually every person that we considered. So she took the time to request the information. She got the resumes, she reviewed them, she came to the committee meeting and she discussed it with us. She did not have a vote on it, but we did take everybody else's comments into consideration when making the vote. And I actually think it was very collaborative. And we did encourage everybody else that wanted to attend. They were free to attend. So I'm happy with the process. I'm happy with the candidates. And I'm sorry that you feel like you did not have a voice in it. With respect to the bylaws, I think we can consider rewarding them. Absolutely. We don't have to stick to something that we've done for a long time if we feel like it's not right. But at this point, you know, those are the committee's nominees. Thanks.
I have a comment too. I mean, I would have liked to at least seen the resumes for the other people, because we got the two of them emailed to us sporadically, but then we never saw the other four. I know we weren't going to have that much input. I personally couldn't make the meetings, but if I had seen the resumes, I may have been able to email in a question or voice my concern to somebody else. You know.
Kathy, may I make a comment?
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say that those concerns are obviously important. I'm not commenting on those. I am commenting that I'm not quite sure about the overall process of the 6 applicants, in that I was the point where at least 2 of them contacted the library via email, and then I forwarded them on to the nominating committee. And then I got a report from a staff member that one of the 6 was in the library asking to get an update on the process. So I realize everyone is busy and no process is perfect, but I'd like to encourage someone to reach out to the 4 candidates, not just to encourage them to run in the future via this board meeting, but to send each of them a thank you email for offering to serve the library.
Tim, that was discussed at the nominating committee meeting, and Maureen, I believe, agreed to draft something so that we could do exactly and precisely what you suggested. And as I said earlier, we would encourage all of the people who submitted resumes, including the 2 that we're putting up to the board for approval, to run at the next annual, because the 2 that, if you choose to approve them, only run to the next annual meeting. So we were going to do that. So thank you for the suggestion, but I think Marina had suggested the same thing at the committee meeting and was going to draft something.
Great, thank you. And on a related note, I just want to say that Jenna and I have spent a couple of hours already, and we're going to need at least a couple of hours tomorrow, trying to figure out, based on our bylaws, our previous elections, and the number of resignations over the last 3 years, just how many positions and of what length are open. I don't mean to be negative, but essentially because of all the resignations, it's really unclear and really difficult to figure out what should be on the ballot for next year.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, just on that point, I kind of went back through the past number of years election results and board things, and I have a list of whose terms come up what year and where the vacancies are. So I can send that to you. You know, you can feel free to verify that, but I think that will save you some time.
Thanks so much, Mike. I was hoping you would say that. So, and I don't know you that well, but in the time you've been on the board, you do that kind of homework. Thank you.
Okay, well, there is a motion on the floor. It's been made and seconded to appoint Andy Genovese and Elish Melchiati to the board. So if there are no other questions or comments, I think we'll put it to a vote. I'll just do a roll call. Mike,
Yeah, I vote yes.
Vanessa,
It was thoroughly unclear that the selection would be completed during the committee meeting, and for that reason, my vote is no.
Tony,
I am also going to vote no.
that's on the phone. Marcia,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Norina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. So we have the motion carries with 2 noes and how many people do we have here? 7 yeses? So the motion carries at 7:14 p.m. Okay, next is me, Design Committee. We're trying to schedule a meeting because I received a email recently from Megan Brennan. She had a couple of open items, the chiller, some things to do with that, and also the paneling in the Helderberg room. So we're going to be having a meeting hopefully next week. Next is Building and Grounds, Barbara.
We have not met, and either has the Long Range Planning Group, but I have great expectations for the folks that weren't selected as nominees, because there was a great part of the community members to play in our long-term plan. And so now that we've seated our full board, we will begin that process.
Okay, Cafe, Peter.
Nothing to report. We did not meet.
Foundation, Norina.
Could I have a question
Sure.
on the cafe? I was at the library the other day and went into the room where the cafe is scheduled to be, but there's only a dinky little sink in there. Now, when you think of a cafe, you would think that there'd be refrigeration, that there would be a stove or electrical connections. And the sink is so small that I don't see how a cook or a kitchen could possibly do that. And I thought when we planned the cafe that it was sort of going to be like a mini restaurant type situation where they could prepare things, store food and stuff. So can somebody, maybe Tim, give me a feel for that? I was just surprised, having seen the original plans, and then, you know, to see the room and to see this tiny little sink that's almost like a kindergarten sink where the kids wash their brushes.
Be happy to comment on that. So my recollection is that at some point earlier, the Design Steering Committee hit kind of a roadblock in terms of Megan's thinking and combining with the RFP process, and kind of shied away from the idea of spending around $20,000 for refrigeration and other equipment without having a vendor yet. She said and advised us that, you know, you could end up buying this stuff and not getting a vendor. So maybe you should get a vendor first and then see what they want. And the most recent status of that particular concept is that I believe she has said to us that it's acceptable to set aside X amount of money. I think we were talking about $15,000 to $20,000, so that once a vendor is procured, You know, we don't hand them a refrigerator that they might not want. They select the refrigerator that we would then own. That's one of the ways of moving forward. The last time I talked to Megan about it, I said, why don't you go ahead and draw up a plan to build the counter space, which would be, that sink would be behind the counter, and where the vending machine is now would be part of the service area. In terms of the size of the sink, we can certainly ask her about that. But it's, you know, it seems to me consistent with, you know, bringing in food from outside and simply needing to wash a few implements and so forth. Changes can be made. We can put a dishwasher in there if we need to. The electric wiring and water infrastructure or plumbing is robust. The sink doesn't look particularly amazing, but we can talk to her about that. So.
Okay,
Thanks for the update.
moving on to foundation, Norina.
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute. They didn't meet this month. I reached out to them to make sure I didn't miss anything because I know they haven't met in, I think, since late November. But they have not met. I didn't miss anything, and they are planning on meeting this month, so I'll let you guys know at the next meeting what was discussed.
Okay, and you're also personnel.
Nothing to report there.
Okay, next is labor management. We did meet on January 11th, and we had a lengthy discussion about emergency closings and how that affects those employees who work at home. And it was determined that that the contract would be followed for all employees, including those working at home, with maybe relooking at that at some point, since working at home began during the pandemic, but has become much more commonplace, as we all know, as we're all at home while we're at this meeting. So that was something that was discussed at that meeting, and also just some sick leave carrying over. Like, there's been a couple people, it's not common going from full-time to part-time. A lot of discussion about that. And also a little discussion about COVID leave, and a thought to begin the process of negotiations, which is personnel committee. So that was pretty much it for that meeting. Policy, Barbara.
We haven't met, but we will be meeting in the next few weeks. To get to Vanessa's point, we'll definitely look at the bylaws and the duties of the nominating committee, and you know, how they would affect, you know, future vacancies. We also will be looking at some policies that were presented to us at a Upper Hudson meeting that have to do with potential book challenges. And most of the policies that we have on the books go back more than 10 years. They all pretty much fit the criteria that Upper Hudson was recommending, but it's a very good policy in any organization to update your policies at least every 5 years and to keep them current. So we will be, you know, looking at those issues and any other issues that anybody, you know, wants us to take a look at. Just tell Kathy, Tim, or myself, and, you know, we certainly will, you know, discuss them.
Okay. Vanessa, the COVID Action Committee and the Pandemic Operations Plan.
Yes. So the COVID Action Committee has not met. This action item that's before the board tonight was a carryover from last month. We presented the pandemic operations plan. There had been some changes to the continuation of services plan that had been inadvertently omitted, misrepresented in the copy that was circulated. So we wanted to get those changes made and recirculated. The only differences are, I can kind of high level summarize here. You'll see across the low, moderate, substantial, and high designation levels of community transmission, you see a gradual reduction in indoor seating, with the high category indicating courtesy seating with an asterisk. Any of the services with this notation indicate that the library director or supervising library would define that service with their discretion. You'll see that limited seated computer use is at the discretion of the library director across those, I don't know what you'd call them, levels of transmission. We added some clarity to the restroom services are available throughout, giving the library director some discretion in the moderate and substantial levels, and retaining for the high level the single use restrooms, as well as the one handicap stall and the multi-person bathroom. You'll also see that meeting room use is not available for the substantial or high designations. They're limited at moderate and full use at low. I think a welcome addition is, again, sort of a gradated availability for single person, for the study room use, rather, excuse me. And then with the building head count, as previously voted on by this board, at the high transmission level, limited to 100, and then leaving the substantial and moderate at the discretion of the library director. Are there any questions about those changes or the POP in general? It's been a while coming, but the committee has worked really hard to update this to address changes in local pandemic climate, with an overall goal of keeping patrons and library staff safe and the library open and usable for as much of the time as possible.
So are there any questions or comments before we hopefully pass this plan? Barbara? Question?
Yeah, well, it's a comment or basically an expression that I can't support this particular plan. We've been almost 2 years into this pandemic. Everybody else in society has opened up. I don't understand how we continue to restrict the use of our library to our citizens. Here's just some of the things that I personally have experienced in the last couple of months, and that I think the vast majority of our citizens have gone to. Movie theaters are open. Churches, synagogues, mosques, they're all open and people are attending. The senior centers. Now, this is your most vulnerable population. Senior centers, they're having luncheons, they're having fitness, they're having pinochle games. They're having painting, bridge, all of which includes close contact with people. And this is your most vulnerable population. The senior centers in Colony and many of our surrounding communities are open to the public. Proctor's Theater is advertising. The MVP Center is advertising concerts. The malls are open. The schools have had their usual traditional concerts. Everybody around us, with the exception of libraries, and we know that the Colony Library has been open, but I don't understand why we continue to be so restrictive when the rest of the town is open. The transmission rate is high with Omicron. I fully grant you that. But again, people have had the opportunity to be vaccinated or not vaccinated. And this could go on for 2 more years with one variant or another variant. At some point, you just have to learn to live with it and go on with as normal a life as you can. The other thing I forgot to mention, sporting events. I've been to sporting events in Colony, Schenectady, Niskayuna, Dwaynesburg, Mohanison, and life is going on. People are masked, they're taking the proper precautions. There's Purell everywhere that you go. And why we can't have the same opportunity for our citizens to use our library in full measure is beyond me, particularly the study rooms. Those should be fully furnished by now. And a tutor and a student or a couple of students that want to, study together should be able to study together, follow the rules, mask up and, do what we require them to do. But we're talking about low numbers in our library, but if there are no programs for people to come to, and there's no seating for people to sit on and be comfortable and leisurely and be able to read their book or magazine or whatever, are we never going to open up? As I said, this may go on for another 2 years. It may go on for another 4 years. It may be like the flu, or we'll have to get we get a flu shot every year. You may have to get a COVID shot every year. But at some point, we have to let our citizens come in and use the library. You could have restrictions. You could say your meeting rooms, people have to sit so far apart. You can limit your group to a number of 25 people or whatever the staff, feels that the room could take. But I just think the time has come that we have to open up our library to the public. And unless we can make some modifications to this plan as we now have it right now, it's so tight that, as I said, we can't even have tutors with a student in the study room, and yet we can go to a school concert, we can go to a school basketball game where there are hundreds of people, and but we can't do that in our library, our brand new library with brand new furniture that is stored somewhere, I guess. Why we are afraid to put out seating for people to sit and be able to read a book. You don't have to have the seats clustered, but you can have them scattered around the library. Make it warm and inviting, and tell people, please come in, take the safety precautions that you do when you go to the mall or the theater or to a concert or whatever, but we want you to come in. So,
Barbara?
Yes.
Do you read my husband's updates at all?
I sure do, every single day, as well
Well,
as.
then you know that there were 19 new hospitalizations overnight. Now there are 123 people in the hospital. There are 12 patients in the ICU, and there were 2 deaths overnight. I mean, the hospitals are getting overwhelmed. It's just sheer numbers. So many people are getting COVID, and I mean, I think I understand that things are open, but people are picking or choosing not to go. I mean, I know my elderly parents who live in another state that has even higher COVID than here basically don't leave their house. You know, they're so concerned about that. And I think that a lot of people are concerned. Maybe you're not concerned. Maybe you want to do everything, and that's fine. You know, people have a very different uh you know idea of what's safe to do and what isn't. And I don't have any problem with this plan. Um so anyway, are there any other comments while we're considering this?
I think, Ms. Marsha, I think Barbara's points are well taken in terms of what's going on in our community. I think there will be a point when we would take another look at this, but given the statistics, Kathy, that you just mentioned to the board, and the fact that Omicron may be peaking but hasn't yet, my view would be to keep this plan in place with a view toward modifying it as conditions improve. I think Barbara's points are very well taken. You know, we could be doing this forever, but I don't think now is the time to make the change.
All
I would
right.
just like to, can I just say something briefly?
Sure.
I've said it before and I'll say it again, that obviously anybody dying from this, I've had 3 family members who have died from COVID related issues, is a horrible, horrible thing to have happen. That being said, I know the numbers, Kathy, that you just discussed. I didn't write them down, you know, with the amount of hospitalizations, but it was below 20. I believe the actual number is less than 500, maybe mid 4, somewhere in that range of the amount of people in Albany County who have passed from COVID. And the last time I looked, the number for Albany County was 330,000 people. And also just quickly, and Tim, this is in no way disrespectful to you. I think Tim and myself have had a discussion. You know, Tim put up there, we have a lot of seating available. And I've given the example, if my wife had to go to the gym and I drove her to the gym and somebody said to me, hey, did you go to the gym today? And I said, yes. Did I answer the question correctly? Yes, I did go to the gym, but that's not what they were talking about. So when Barbara's talking about the seating, she's talking about the meeting rooms, the library functioning in normal capacity, which some of us on this board have felt very, very strongly about. And I would absolutely agree with her. I was just at the MVP Arena the other day. The place was packed. Everybody was adhering to what they were supposed to. They had the masks on. Things went exactly. I didn't hear about mass casualties after the Disney on Ice performance the other day at the MVP Arena as of yet. But it is time for us to open. People, I think, if we educate people and continue to educate people on washing your hands, general hygiene, wear your mask, do those type of things, I think we'll be all right. And my understanding too, based on the amount of numbers, if you look at Dan McCoy, who mentioned numbers, I believe there's actually a decrease, a significant decrease in the amount of people who reported testing positive in the last couple of days compared to what we were dealing with last week. So I just think it's a little bit of a myth when we build this big idea that there's mass casualties happening here in Albany County. That's just not factual. In Guilderland, it is just not factual. So I'm, you know, this is an issue that's been discussed for a long time. I would just encourage us at some time we have to open up, and I mean open up at normal capacity. We should be having board meetings inside of a very large library that we just spent millions of dollars on to do a construction project on. We should not be sitting on a WebEx meeting doing this, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Somebody mentioned earlier in the meeting that a committee just making a recommendation, not everybody else is involved. That's exactly what's happened with the COVID committee. That's how this whole process has played out. And to be honest, that's disappointing.
Well, I mean, in all due respect, Peter, I never said that there was a mass casualty, but you know, the real metric is overwhelming healthcare facilities and medical facilities with COVID patients. And it's just a sheer numbers game. You know, like there are so many people getting this Omicron that you know, some people are going to get severely ill. I mean, it's just, that's what's happening, but people who are vaxxed and boosted are not. So I mean, it's there's there's a difference there, but I mean, I think in terms of just the COVID opening, I mean, it has everything open when COVID becomes low. And, you know, warm weather helps a lot. I mean, right now we're in a deep freeze and people are gathering indoors, and it's probably helping to spread this extremely contagious illness. So I have no problem with having these gradations of library use. So anybody
Let me just
comment?
one last thing, and
Okay.
one last thing, Kathy, and just to make very clear, I'm not trying to argue with you or do anything like that. I have the utmost respect for you. And just on a side note, I love reading the things that your husband sends out every single day related to what the numbers are, different things that are happening in the town. I believe he's probably one of the most transparent people we've ever had in that position. So I think it's wonderful with that. And the last thing I will say is, and people could check my numbers and fact check me if they want, but I believe that if we actually take the number of people in the United States who die from car accidents each day, it's pretty comparable to the amount of people who have died from COVID. And as you all noticed today, when you went to work, cars are not sitting on the side of the road and people aren't hanging out at home. They're still driving their cars. We just educate people on what to do when you're on the roadways, right? And that keeps people as safe as we can. We don't shut everything down. And that's all I'll say too. I have strong opinions on it. You guys know I have strong opinions on it. Thank you for the time.
Kathy, just one more quick comment.
Anything else? Okay.
Just one more
Barbara?
quick comment. I guess my point is that we are such a small microcosm of the entire area, and we are the only entity that I'm aware of that is being so restrictive. And you're talking, you know, population of maybe 30,000 in the entire capital district. And again, with all these other venues being opened, why do we want to maintain the closeness being closed as a library to the normal activities, functioning activities of the library? But I've said my piece, so I will let somebody else speak now. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment?
Can I respond, Kathy?
Sure, absolutely.
So one thing that I would like to say to Tim and the library staff is that I come into the library pretty regularly, and it has been really a joy to see people enjoying the library, seated in the library. It feels welcoming to me. You can see over time how it has sort of filled in and is starting to like grow its personality back as items are added. So I wanted to just acknowledge the library team for that work. Second, I'd like to say that, you know, some of the calculus in coming up with the decisions around this pandemic operations plan, I think it's important to make the distinction from many of the venues that were referenced as comparisons. We are not a revenue-driven model organization. And I think what we are seeing locally is that in order to survive, many businesses have to reopen to remain viable. I mean, they require foot traffic. And so I think that we just need to acknowledge that depending on the type of organization or business you are, will force you to make different decisions. And then lastly, in response to Peter's comment, my issue is not that work occurs in committees. This committee has been working on this pandemic operations plan for several months, and it was well known that this group was developing a plan to submit for review. My comment earlier was not in criticism of the nominating committee individuals and people, but it was with from my perspective, the lack of clarity of their charge. I did not realize from the last meeting, based on some responses from other board members, the objective and the product of that committee. So I take exception to that comment, Peter, and I think it's a totally different scenario. I'd also like to thank the Pandemic Operations Committee for their hard work on this. It's not perfect. It's the best that we felt we could do and made a good faith effort. So I'd like to present the plan for consideration of approval or adoption. Can I make that motion?
So motion by Vanessa, is there a second? Phil? Okay, I'll take a roll call on the, if there's no further comment, I'll take a roll call on the motion. Mike?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I do intend to vote for this plan, as I see it as an improvement over the current plan that we have in place right now. But I do share some of the concerns that have been expressed by Barb and by Peter. And I do think that sooner rather than later, we need to, I think as long as this pandemic is ongoing, we need to be revisiting this and looking at what's appropriate and seeing where there's opportunities to provide a greater range of services that we used to provide to the community. And so I would like to see that continue to go forward, hopefully sooner, just to keep revisiting this. As long as we're providing a degraded level of services from what has traditionally been expected from this library, we need to be continually revisiting this and seeing if there are things we can do to safely allow more to be done. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, well, hopefully COVID is on the wane. I mean, the numbers are going down. They're going in the right direction, I guess, in terms of absolute infection. So we're hopeful, like I said, we're in the middle of the winter. It's freezing cold, and hopefully by warmer weather this will be in the rearview mirror when we will open more fully. I'm optimistic. So I have a motion on the floor. If there's no further comments, I'll take the roll. Let's see, Mike?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
Barbara? Is that a yes? You're on mute.
No.
Oh, you're a no. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. And Phil?
Yes.
Norina?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Mike's comments, and my vote is yes.
Okay, and Peter?
No.
Okay, so we have 2 noes, and I am in favor. I'm a yes. So we have 7 yes and 2 noes, and the motion passes at 7:45 to adopt the revised COVID plan. Let's see, next on the agenda. Oh yes, UHLS, Tony?
Hi, so just 2 quick things. As mentioned in the review of the income statement, there was the grant money that came from the Upper Hudson Library. That's one thing. The other thing is just a reminder that in 2023 January, so a year from now, there will be a requirement to earn 2 CPE credit hours. And the Upper Hudson Library System is going to undertake a training program this year, 2022, to get board members used to taking education classes. And so they wanted me to inform everyone to be on the lookout for emails of different topics that they're releasing that board members can participate in and just get it in the habit of attending training, learn how the process works. So everyone will be well prepared for January 2023 when the requirement comes into place. And that was it.
Thank you. I think
You're
that
welcome.
concludes our committee reports.
Kathy?
Yes?
Before we leave committee, just very quickly, I realized I forgot when we were discussing the investment part of the finance committee. I neglected to say that after the presentation about the investment options, the finance committee went on to begin the work on the budget for next year. We spent a considerable amount of time working on the budget, and we have our next meeting scheduled for this coming Monday to continue the work on the budget process. So I just wanted to finish that. Sorry about that. That's all.
Oh, that's all right. Yes, we did. I'm on the committee, so we did extensively discuss the budget. All right. I don't have any old business on the agenda, but there is time for it. Was there any old business? Vanessa?
I just wanted, I thought that we had discussed that it was about the insurance or the agreement between the school district and the library, and there hadn't been a final decision made on that. But in the financial report, I thought I heard that the payment changed. So I was just wondering if there had been a decision there. Did I hear that correct, or am I misinterpreting?
Tim, did you want to speak to that?
Sure. I'm not entirely certain. I remember the reference Vanessa is talking about earlier in the treasurer's report. Marcia Alizraki and myself, Margaret Garrett, Carol Cott, David Gilliam all met with Chris Broussard of Ten Eyck, who is our insurance representative. And Chris was strongly recommending that rather than the past practice of having the school district cover the expenses for the insurance for the building and grounds, and the library covering the expense for the contents of the building, that it would be a lot cleaner claims process in the event of a disaster or a claim, for one organization to hold both. So it was decided somewhere, I'm sorry, I can't be specific at this exact moment, but I think it went through the board to have the library be that sole party. And then also related to that, the additional square footage brings with it an additional cost, as well as the fact that we insure for replacement cost, and that coverage level had not been increased in many years. So between having more square footage and it would cost more to replace it in the event of a fire, for example, the value of the facility for insurance purposes went from, these are very rough numbers from several months ago, but went from basically like 9 million to 15 million or something like that. So there was a significant increase in the amount of coverage that we're getting. And then lastly, Marcia had some recommendations that we discussed in that meeting with Chris Broussard. For example, off the top of my head, I can remember that we doubled our liability coverage from 2 million to 4 million, and that we raised our deductible, which was an effort to actually save money and did save us about $700 a year. And a couple of other, there's an inflationary principle of about 2% built into the plan this time for the first year. So that is kind of a rough summary of the insurance changes I'm aware of. And I'm aware of all of our insurance changes essentially. It's just that it was, I want to say in like November or maybe even October that meeting took place. So it's been a little while.
Yeah, and I can share what I was talking to Carol about. So the reason why I addressed the insurance with her is that it went up by $1,000. So it went to $2,342 per month, which was about a 50% increase, and just wanted the background behind it. And she provided some details saying that the primary driver of the increase was the decision for the Guilderland Public Library to insure the library instead of the Guilderland School District. So I think that's consistent with what Tim was saying. When she defined the library, I guess that includes part of the collection as well. Tim, is that what you were saying? Okay,
Yeah, we're actually still working on the collection number, but we might, the value of the collection numbers. But we're probably going to need to, if that is going to be changed, it'll probably be next year.
So it's the building and the collection?
Building, collection, and furniture contents, basically all the desks and filing cabinets and tables and chairs and et cetera.
Thank you. So just to put a final point on it, so there's no longer a need for an MOU between the library and the district.
So that's a larger and to some extent different subject. And the update on that is that, first of all, in my opinion, there's no need for it. And in Chris Lanchanton, our lawyer's opinion, there's no need for it because the relationship between the school district and a school district public library is statutory, and our MOU only existed because there were lawsuits surrounding the construction of the building in 1992. However, the school district, as far as I know from talking to Chris Lanchanton, essentially feels the same way, but it's so low on their agenda to get to working out. I think it would be accurate to say they think there might be one or two very small matters that should be in a future MOU, but it's just as far as I know, and I don't know if Barbara would have any comment, but what I'm told by Chris is that when she contacts the law firm that the school district uses, they say, we'll get to that as soon as we can, but it's just not rising to any level of importance for the school district to take away the MOU or change it. But I think there is a general recognition, excuse me, on their side that it's an outdated agreement that is mostly not necessary.
All right, thanks, Tim. I think I probably might have been conflating two things, so I appreciate the clarification.
They are connected, though. Barbara has something to say, it looks like.
Just a quickie. Oops, I guess I'm on. Don't we traditionally meet sometime in January with the school board?
It has been anywhere from January to June. It's usually more in the spring than in the winter, in my experience.
We could certainly raise that issue.
Sure.
Meeting.
Yep. I would like to see it progress to 0 or to 1 or 2 items, whatever those are for the school district. And
All right. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to talk about that we've have as old business? I think Barbara.
Kathy, I don't know if this is considered old business or new business, but in one of the mailings or newsletters that we had about the children's department, they did a beautiful set of kits for the various holidays in December for various religious groups. But the one thing that we didn't see is something for Christmas. They did it for Denali and a number of other things, and which I think is wonderful. But I would just encourage the staff to celebrate all the traditions that we know about, in the library or that our patrons make us aware of. I think it makes us more inclusive. It's wonderful to celebrate each other's happy times. Our sign on our driveway, there was no Happy Hanukkah, no Merry Christmas, nothing to engage with the citizens in our community. And I would hope that we as a board, if it has to be a board type of a direction, would encourage the library to celebrate all that there is to celebrate in the town. I know the fire departments do their best to say, happy things for various segments of our community, and I know it's appreciated. So even from the standpoint of say Thanksgiving, having turkeys or whatever, or Chinese New Year, whatever would be appropriate for that, to let the community know that we appreciate the diversity that we have in the community, and we want to encourage it and celebrate each other's happy time, so to speak. So I don't know if that's old business, new business, or if it requires a policy or just a general sense of the board. But I just congratulate the children's department for coming up with the idea of these little kits for the various holidays that transpired in December, and encourage them to do it for as many groups as they become aware of in the town, where they can learn from people who have come and are celebrating different things, and to share that with the community. Thank you.
All right. So should we move on to the new business, the records retention and records retention policy?
Sure.
that-
And in case anyone's scared that that's two separate items, I think it's going to be a quick one for you. But I also want to point out that after the agenda was developed, it was pointed out to me that Carol Cott's temporary contract with us expires tomorrow. So I believe about 30 hours ago now, you received an amended contract. Our lawyer's out of town. So what we did is we simply changed the dates on this contract to May 1st of 2022. The reason that date was chosen is that one of our leading candidates for the fiscal officer position is very interested, but is not available until April 1st. And since we might make an offer to that candidate, Carol is willing to extend her time on an hourly basis until April 1st. The main thing that she would do in the last month is basically orient him to our record keeping and payroll systems, him or her, I should say. So as we have a lot of lawyers on the board, but from the accounting perspective, Carol has been big on teaching all of us that if she does anything for us on Saturday or on Monday without a contract, it's an illegal expenditure on our part. So I'd like to suggest that you guys take a vote on this contract extension and get that into place if possible.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Mike.
I may be misremembering, and I might be confusing this with something else, but was there some limitation on the duration of time that we could enter into a temporary contract like this? And
Yes.
what?
There is a state law. I'm sorry, Mike, I don't know if it's a state law, but civil service of Albany County in general says that you can't employ a consultant longer than 90 days or you have a need for a true position. That's what that rule is about. So actually probably about 6 weeks ago, as this date was approaching, we contacted civil service and they said, you got to do what you got to do. They gave us, written permission in an email to extend the agreement if necessary at that time. We contacted them after the first round of fiscal officer interviews where we had interviewed 5 people and then 2 pulled out, 2 were unable to do the job, and 1 was technically able, but not really a good candidate. And so they extended it for us in writing at that time.
Okay, and that they approved it to go all the way to May 1st. Is that?
He just said, until you can hire a fiscal officer, basically. So.
Right, because the 90-day that was what was in the back of my head, and it looked going from now. I mean, just from now till May 1st is more than an additional 90 days. So I just wanted to make sure we're not getting ourselves in any trouble by doing this extension. So
I can always, I'm again not a lawyer, but I could always contact him tomorrow and ask, say we passed a resolution last night to extend her. I just want to double check that that's going to be okay. And given the relationship that I've developed with civil service, and especially the one that was developed for many, many years here by Margaret Garrett, on which mine is based, I would predict that he would say, yes, that's fine. I would tell him that we have a candidate that we very much like who can't start till April 1st. And I have a feeling he would say it was okay. Signing a contract, again, you guys are the lawyers, but signing it, what's written in it is that it's on a per diem basis. So we could always sign it and then not employ her if he said, no, you can't do that, I would think. Although I would also add that not having anyone to mind the financial house, particularly in budget development season, would be a very bad thing for us to do. And the civil service rule would be the only reason I know of to think about that.
So is there any other comments about Carol's contract extension? Okay, so do I have a motion to extend the existing contract to May 1st, 2022 with
Yes.
on a per diem basis? Phil? And
Barbara,
the second?
Barbara,
Okay. All right. Do we need a roll call, or would you like to just signify by saying aye if you're in favor?
aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? All right, the extension is unanimous at 8:04 p.m. All right.
Records.
Should we move on to the other agenda items, the records?
Sure. So during the pandemic, the state of New York was coming to a close on a process that I gather happens about once a generation, where they change the requirements for records retention for all organizations that are subject to any oversight by the government. So the state has passed a new records retention policy. For those of you who are perhaps involved with this at other workplaces, for example, the schedule that was in effect until I think January 1st was called Records Retention and Disposition Schedule M1. And the new records retention policy is called LGS1. And it's, like a 700-page document. And we're reviewing it in the admin department, trying to, begin the process of conforming to it. But the reason there are two items on the agenda is that on the second to the last page of your board packet, there's a sample resolution that the state recommends that the boards of all not-for-profits pass. So I'd like to recommend that we pass that resolution. And then, hoping to do business efficiently, our records retention policy appears on the back page of your board packet. And there, I'm suggesting that we, at the very least, have introduced this into the board consciousness as of today, and that all we will have to do to make our policy conform to the state is change the symbols M1 in that records retention policy to LGS1. Although if I understand the bylaws correctly, we can't do that second item tonight. But by introducing it to you, it at least starts the 30-day time clock. So if I understand everything correctly, I'm recommending that we vote on the records retention resolution that the state has written. That's on the second to the last page of your policy.
So Tim, you want us to vote on it at the next meeting, or?
No, I think that it would be fine to vote on the model resolution now, and then to change M1 to LGS1 as a matter of policy. Strictly speaking, we should have a 30-day review of that. Although, quite frankly, I can't envision any concern with conforming to the state's recommended and required records retention policy.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Mike?
I think Phil had his hand up first if he wants to speak.
Sure, I'll try to be quick. It looks like the model resolution doesn't specify the schedule, which makes me think if our policy matched that, we would not have to update it when they update the schedule. They're referencing Article 57A and whatever's in there. If they come back and change the schedule to something else, we'd still have a valid policy if we left out the specific schedule. Is that a correct reading, Mike the lawyer?
I would have to take a little more time and look at it. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I just yeah, I'll have to take a little more time and look at that. I wanted to just say, just as a clarification, under our bylaws, policy changes don't need to wait till the next meeting to be reviewed. It's only bylaws changes that we have to wait till a subsequent. We said that the board had a tradition and practice of leaving things for a later meeting, but it's not actually a requirement. So, I mean, I don't know how pressing it is that we get this done.
I don't think that's a good point. Two good points, Mike. I don't think it's pressing at all. I think the whole thing could easily wait another month. And then to Phil's point, our policy, of course, references the 57A article. So maybe the change we consider for next month to our policy is to just strike that last sentence, because that's where we specify what records retention schedule is being used. And then we'd be in accord with the 57A nature of both documents. I think if anyone is at all uncomfortable, feel free to, do some Googling before next month. I don't think that that passing the board resolution is an urgent matter. So if there's any concern, we can just bring it up again next month.
Okay, my sense of it is to just give it the additional 30 days since it's not urgent. Is that with everyone?
Yep.
Okay, so we've been notified.
Okay.
All right. Was there anything for public input session number 2?
I've not received anything since the beginning of the meeting, no.
Okay. So does anyone have anything else?
I move we adjourn.
I second.
I third.
All who are in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, so we are adjourned.
Have a good night, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.